Friends, if you are either a car guy or a Volvo aficionado, or perhaps someone that just loves all things Swedish, you most assuredly know by now that Volvo is under the corporate stewardship of a Chinese company, and they have not updated the XC90 in like a gazillion years. Well, I am here to tell you that those two things matter not. This behind me here, and this is going to be quite a bold statement, that is almost as cool as a Porsche 918, a Ferrari LaFerrari, and a McLaren P1. Don't believe me? Well, check this out. It has two separate electric motors that drive two separate axles. And it has another thing that neither the LaFerrari, the P1, or the 918 can claim. It has both a turbocharger and a supercharger. While we were able to talk Volvo into early access of this vehicle, it is so special we have this pre-production unit for like 3 minutes. So let's jump into an abbreviated full episode. So I think we'd all agree that the XC90 has been a long-time staple on the SUV baby buggy track. I mean, just look at any like fancy private school or nice neighborhood and you see a lot of these things. So with that said, let's first look at this thing as just a regular old gasoline SUV, shall we? Let's put our foot into this thing and see what kind of power she's got. Definitely gets up and goes, and obviously got to scrub some speed around a corner, but overall, you feel that if I were to tell you there's a V6 underneath there, you would believe me. Now granted, it wouldn't come across as the most refined V6, but at least the power delivery from the gasoline engine is very flat, unlike the road we're driving on right now. Now with that, let's look at the reality of what is really underneath this thing. Now friends, we need to take some time to really unpack what's going on underneath the hood of this vehicle, because we can't underestimate what Volvo is trying to accomplish. You've got gasoline, two electric motors, here's the important part, driving two separate axles. The only other application we've seen this is very high-end sports cars. This, an SUV. So where do we start? The very basics of the gas motor. Now, kind of bring you up to speed, Volvo moving forward is looking to do nothing but 4-cylinder engines. The logic being they want to increase efficiency but still have power of larger engines. So they do this here with a turbocharged and supercharged 4-cylinder engine. This is 318 horsepower, 295 pound-feet of torque. Now let's press on. We've got the transmission here, and in between the engine and the transmission, you've got a motor generator that adds an additional 46 horsepower and 110 pound-feet of torque. You with me so far? Now come on back here. While those two systems drive the front wheels, we've got a separate electric motor that drives the rear wheels. That adds an additional 82 horsepower and 177 pound-feet of torque. Now I know what you're thinking, that sounds great. 446 horsepower and 582 pound-feet of torque. Well, it doesn't really work that way because all of these systems don't work together simultaneously, at least not all the time. So what you get is a total system horsepower of 400 and a total system pulling power, the torque, of 472 pound-feet. So all that power and torque is great, but how does that translate to driving dynamics? Because one would think with figures like that, you've got yourself a sports car or a sports SUV. Well, let me dispel that myth for you immediately. This ain't no sports car. It's not designed to be a sports car. Let me put it another way. So let's say you have a Spectrum, a handling Spectrum. You've got like Con and the GLA on this end of the spectrum. And granted, they are not direct competitors, they're not three rows like this, but you understand what I'm saying in terms of handling Spectrum. And then on the other end, you've got more compliant. That's where this sits. This thing is designed to really live in neighborhoods. So what does that mean out here on the road? Well, you do get a good amount of understeer when you push beyond certain limits. Like, there's composure up to a certain speed, but once you get past that certain speed, and that speed can change depending on the circumstance you're in. So here, yeah, this is not really where you should be taking a vehicle like this, because think about all of the electric motors you've got and the batteries, that in conjunction with this kind of road, it, of course, is going to be a little understeer and lean. And a note about the battery, that sits in the middle of the console here, and then you've got your electric motor over the rear axle, and then your motor generator between the engine and the transmission. So Volvo has done a very good job of minimizing the impact of two propulsion systems in one package. So in the preview film of this car, I left you guys with a bit of a technical question. What does this baby buggy, the 2016 Volvo XC90, have in common with a Corvette? And there was a bit of legalese there. This is the T8 that is fitted with an air suspension. But in the case of the T6 or T8 in other regions of the world that are fitted with the steel spring suspension, what does it have in common with a Corvette, a sports car? Well, the answer is this: a transverse leaf spring. Okay, let's try this drive mode system out on the road here, and just a little bit behind the scenes. For most of this episode thus far, I've been driving in the save mode. And what this does is this basically turns off the electric motor and the car is running mostly on the gas motor. And the logic for this is, like, let's say for the sake of discussion you live in London and you commute into London, and I don't know for a fact if this car qualifies as no congestion charge, but that's generally the logic. You would drive on, say, the M4 into the city center running on gas, and then you would save your electricity for when you're in the city center. Really an interesting note, I was down to about a little less than a quarter, maybe an eighth of electric power, and in the save mode it regenerates from the brakes and the engine, and I am almost up to, I want to say, almost half battery charge, and that's maybe over 20 minutes. That is remarkable. But anyway, let's move into some different modes here. So let's start with the most basic one, and that is the hybrid, and that is the everyday use. They even label it as such. And basically, this is what you would see in like a Prius. You've got the electric motor that starts from a stoplight, and then the gas motor kicks in after that. This is supposed to give you like the target normal fuel efficiency. The refinement level, I would say, is about the same as in save mode. I get a little bit more oomph because I've got some electric power that's assisting that engine. Overall, I wouldn't say a huge difference in acceleration between save and hybrid modes. So with that, let's start having some fun with this thing and let's go into power mode. Now they call this one sporty driving. And the first thing you notice, I mean immediately, is the throttle is so much more responsive. And you also notice I'm going around this turn here, I think it's the air suspension, but ultimately there's a little bit less understeer. So what you get is it's more confident. So not so much that there is an extra oomph to the car, but the biggest thing you notice, the overall driving dynamics of the car improve over, say, the hybrid or the save mode. Yeah, there are a couple other modes, but we're not going off-roading and we're above 20 miles an hour, so let's go to the pièce de résistance and go to pure mode, and that's full electric. So you've got the motor generator and you've got the motor in the back working, and basically that gives you anywhere between 17 and 25 miles of range when fully charged. Of course, your mileage may vary depending on how you drive. And here we are, a fully electric Volvo in the canyons of Malibu. Now, if Volvos didn't already have a connotation of being nice cars for people who love to hug trees, this definitely put it over the edge. But I'd like to point out, as someone who kind of grew up on Volvos, like half my life was like Buicks and Chevys and half my life growing up was Volvos, there's still traits of Volvo here, like this clip here, and this is like for like cards from back when there was cards on the toll booth, or put parking cards. You have this thing here, and this SRS sticker is like exactly the same from an 84 760 diesel. And then there is one last setting, and that is called individual. It does not take a rocket scientist to figure out what this one does. Basically, you can mix and match the different settings based on driver preferences. Now, taking a look in here, this is a stunning place to be, but as we discussed in the preview episode of this car, we don't have as much time with a T8 as we do with a T6, so we will talk about the interior in the T6 full episode. But I have to tell you here, on one side of the fence, it's unlike any other Volvo that has come before it, but on this side of the fence, it is a very familiar place to be. So in summary, what do we got? Under normal circumstances, if I were to present to you a car that has a propulsion system that is even close to the Techno Flash propulsion system of a P1, a 918, a LaFerrari, that basically would be end of story, drop the mic and walk off stage. But friends, I did not expect the level of refinement in this vehicle. And the only way to put this, the level of refinement here is equal to the importance of the propulsion system. Now, let's be honest here. This ain't no sports car. It's not going to compete with, say, an AMG or an M version of an SUV from other manufacturers. It is somewhat pricey. But there's something else about it that I did not expect. Full disclosure, when I heard the Chinese were taking over Volvo, I didn't expect anything like this from their future. This is, forget about the refinement for a minute, it's such a bold statement from a technology perspective. It makes this thing a statement, or really a mile marker, or a line in the sand that Volvo is saying to the world, you know what, we may have been taken over by the Chinese, but the reality is the Chinese are smart enough to know that they should leave the design, the engineering, and most importantly, the thought process of developing Swedish cars and Swedish design to the Swedes. Now with that, I want to leave you guys a question. So this is an unexpected propulsion system in this segment. But my question is this: do you want to see this propulsion system in other segments? I mean, right now, only sports cars, but now you've got this one SUV. Do you want to see it in sedans? Do you want to see it in station wagons or estate, whatever part of the world you're from and however you call them? Let me know in the comments below or via our social media, MotoManTV all one word, MotoManTV all one word, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And don't just tell me what segments, but tell me why you want that propulsion system in that segment. And really, until next time, the point I want to leave you with is Sweden, it's still a great country. So here's the script. Click here to subscribe, click here to watch one of our 350 other episodes, and most importantly, share us with your friends. You're already wasting half your life on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. MotoManTV, all one word. I don't care who you share us with. Share us with your enemies. Just give the gift of MotoMan.